Good morning, Dr. Brad. Glad to
Curt,
see you. You and your handsome self every morning.
fresh coffee.
Sorry for my allergies yesterday. Couldn't wasn't
Oh
very
my.
effective.
I don't ever expect people to apologize to me about their physical condition.
Oh, just lost the whole day. I mean, literally, all I did
Really?
was all I did was load up on antihistamines and sleep around the clock.
Hmm.
Anyway, so you were just talking about participating on Twitter
Yeah, it's
because,
a novelty for me. So I've only done it for like a few days.
and of course, I have the desire to tease my good dear friend Dr. Brad here. And I'm trying to suppress it as much as possible while I'm discussing this, but something will leak out on eventually, I'm sure. But so the point I was trying to make is that I was trying to make it, and then you came back. Was I just it like there's the reason I use it is largely recruiting and testing, right? And it's incredibly time consuming to use it for those purposes, but it's
Hmm.
also the only place to get it. And I think of it as you don't live in a like for most of my career I'm in a sort of bubble really because I'm working with really higher, educated and very bright people, and I have access to pretty amazing men around
Hmm.
the world. Right? And so, you sort of live in this, but what Twitter does, at least for me, is it lets me see how the other half lives.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? Does that make sense?
It's
Whereas in
unfiltered,
your
right?
practice, you get to see how the other half lives. You talk to them every day. You talk to ordinary people.
Yeah, but those interactions are very focused on it's problem focused and it's very specific.
Yes.
And so it's not it's filtered in a different way. It's bubblified by topic as
Okay.
opposed to by socioeconomic achievement.
But you still have to figure out how to address or talk to these different people, right?
Right.
Right. And so that's the similarity, I think, in the values is you have to figure out how to reach people across, you know,
Right. So that the Twitter's telling me what things they're talking about and what topics they're talking about. And it's interesting because it's like I interact with them and I can interact with them in a civil manner that doesn't appear to bother them, which is
yes,
kind of interesting. So I'll interject in some and I do it in between when I'm doing something else.
sure. That's what I do
So
too.
it's not consuming any time that would not otherwise be consumed. So
Right.
it's a distraction in the moment that doesn't expand my utilization of time.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, so I just it's curious to me what is people are talking about, and then I react to them a little bit and see what happens, and I try to be positive in reaction,
Yes.
which is okay because it's like it's like I think that it's easy to get someone to get mad at you.
Yes, because they have no restraint, right? When you're face to face, or at least among men, violence is always
It's on the table.
right. When you're men to woman, disapproval or shaming is, and it's in public, right? But to some degree, we're all wearing psychological suits of armor. We're at our keyboards, and so these games don't work. You can't physically threaten, and when you shame, it's meaningless. I don't care. So, but my point was that is it a good use of anyone's time? Well, good use of my time because it's the cheapest means of conducting the kind of research I want to conduct on the broadest range of people. I mean, it's literally the only thing that costs me is my time,
Right.
right? Whereas, and the other thing is that once I run a test, now I can recruit people. I mean, we do recruit people. I mean, I'm not really sure who does all the recruiting around here. There seems to be a little bit of everybody. But,
Yeah, my impression of that is that there's it's like a network of people that are bouncing around generating vibrations that act as a funnel,
right, it's correct.
and
So
they go to the center is the occupy where we occupy the center, which is
yes,
scientific, based on reality as it exists.
Right.
And
And so our ideas percolate out through these indirect channels,
but they increase
and then they come back.
The people will come there because they're attracted to the truth, and the base reality is what's attracting them.
Right.
One of the conversations I was in, there was they were talking. You posed the question. I responded to your fairly lengthy, and it was just a little thing. It wasn't huge, but it was why do the social scientists do this thing they do? And I'm like, they have to, because they have no choice. They have no they can't ground out the thought process, so therefore they just have to vibrate their preferences.
That's right.
And so it's like this: when they detect that someone's more base than them, they're going to go to the base.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to try to ground out their erratic, ungrounded thought processes that are not based on anything, which is a neurotic exposition, right?
Yes.
Because it's all that you can do. If you're not grounded, you have to have a place to dump that energy that makes sense.
Yes, correct. And it's the best they can do. Right? It's
that's just this is what my father would call damnation by faint praise. That was it. That was it. No, golly, Curt. No, it is the best they can do, though.
Well, some of them I look at it, it's like, well, you're just not smart enough to do better.
Right. In the South, we would truncate that. We would just say, bless their hearts.
Bless their hearts, right? And that's most of the soft sciences. Then you get up into the people who are public intellectuals, in other words, who they're exceptional in their field, and they bring some novelty or explanation of their field. And those people aren't incapable, they're either biased or ignorant. So, I tease Eric Weinstein because of his he's got a chip on his shoulder because he has dyslexia. And that he couldn't get the people in university to appreciate what he was saying with his mathematical approach. But the problem is that he only offered them a promise of a possibility rather than the solution. Yet his promise of possibility is a different form of, in mathematics, we call it a projection, of creating a way of measurement that would possibly lead to an explanation of the problems in physics. Now, that's actually an innovation, what he did there. And I think it's important to appreciate what he's saying when he says that. And I can't repeat it off the top of my head, so don't ask me. What he's talking about, it makes perfect sense to me, but I can't repeat it off the top of my head.
Right.
But he didn't bring it to conclusion. And so what happens is he sort of got this string theory looked pretty close. It was still wrong. Probably know why it's wrong now, but it looked wrong. It looked right, but it looked like explanatory power was there. He got to the point where he has a new system of measurement, but he hasn't demonstrated, and you can see there's a pattern in what he's saying with this by taking the geometric view of the universe between the mathematics he's explaining, the new projection as the method of measurement he's explaining, and the unification of these things is the Einsteinian and quantum with this geometric projection. Right. But he couldn't get it across the line. And so he's saying, why would anybody fund me to get it across the line? Why would anybody fund me to hire, and it's because he didn't get far enough. Right. So when I hear him, I hear a lot of chip on the shoulder stuff.
Now, let me
just finish. So he's not incompetent.
Right.
right? He's not lacking innovation. He's just got a bias against the academy because he feels disenfranchised. Now, I went to the academy, did the same thing. Said, I want to do a PhD in this, and you can't.
It's true. Sorry.
Well, first of all, can you imagine me trying to explain this to somebody?
Not in less than a year.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't get paid to do the research program unless you've already got enough of a discovery, right? Or enough of a promise of discovery. And the more difficult it is to understand that discovery, the more difficulty it is to find sponsors for it and to obtain. Because how do they know the difference between? I mean, if you came to me with this stuff before I knew it, I would say you're fucking high.
Right?
I,
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely outlandish.
And I'm completely rational about it. So I don't have a chip on my shoulder. I would just go do it anyway. Right? I would just take control of the issue, and I went out and did it anyway.
Right.
Funded it myself, basically, which is why I did it later in life instead of early.
Right.
So he's got his chip. So anyway, so all I was trying to say with him is I'm not really is that there's a whole bunch of people like Eric, like who was I listening to the other day, who was kind of a
We call them frustrated.
they're just well I just think it's an ignorance, right? They just don't have a bridging set of tools to get there, right? There's no way of getting there. And my belief is, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, it's that all these people are obsessed with mathematics over computation. So they don't really know that the problem is that they're thinking in math, mathematics must by definition obscure causality because it's a form of reduction. So you can identify patterns, but can you come up with the causality, the computations that are causing the resulting aggregate patterns? And so my belief is that, of course, this is why I say, had Babbage got it right, we wouldn't have had the shitstorm of philosophy and the right in the middle. We wouldn't have had the communists. We wouldn't have had we would have had Einstein earlier. In other words, and it wouldn't have been wrong like Einstein's wrong. It would have been more like Hilbert was trying to achieve it. It would have been in the European tradition of operations rather than the Semitic and feminine tradition of pictures. And so Einstein, Cantor, Bohr, and Feynman all use pictures. Well, they're pictures, but those are stories. They're not descriptions. Right? They're narratives that give enough explanation to describe the behavior, but not tell us the cause of the behavior. So anyway, my whole point is that there's some people that are just not smart enough. Right? There are some people that are smart enough, but they don't lack the knowledge. And there's some people smart enough lack the knowledge, and that knowledge appears to be mathiness. At least my understanding is it appears to be
so
mathematics.
I want to reflect that a little bit just so make sure that I understand what you're telling me clearly. Is that they erroneously seek solutions from math that are not available through that process because of the reductive nature of the mathematics.
Correct. In fact, it inhibits their process.
It obscures the causality. And they think that it will tell them the cause. And it's an illusion that they're chasing.
Correct. So what you use math for is the same thing we use any observation for. I see a pattern. How do I explain it? So essentially math I say it this way to create a Confucian puzzle, which is that all mathematics is statistical. In other words, it doesn't tell you the cause, it just describes the relations. Whereas it's left to us to find the relations. So the problem is, if you're sitting here fussing about how to solve this problem with mathematics, which is there's basically four forces, they're all ratios of one another, we can't quite figure out why. Right? I mean, that's the simple reduction of physics. So there's four basic variables, and they appear to be ratios of one another, so they have a common cause, but we can't figure out what it is. It's like the 137 problem, the 137 problem. Well, what produces 137? We don't know. Anyone knows. I mean, so we can't quite figure out what's causing it. But if you look at the people who are the operationalists, they're trying to propose theories that are analogies to experience.
Okay.
That treat the universe as of matter and energy a little more closely to a liquid phenomenon.
Yeah.
Liquid or gaseous phenomenon. And they're treating strings as things in themselves instead of arcs of discharge.
Yep.
So it looks pretty reasonable that if you took, we ran, instead of trying to find a mathematical solution, we tried operational solutions, because we would be able to falsify because we'd have something to test. What's happening now is we're running out of things to test. And the tests we want to conduct, either at the very small particle accelerators or at the very large, even galaxies. And we just can't run the tests. They're too expensive. So, for example, is the energy density of space equal at all points?
Right. There's an interesting question.
Is space really an object with an ether with density that through velocity can be concentrated and form gravity? Or is electromagnetic, which is a slow propagation of because there's nowhere for energy to go, right? It's not like we boil water and it goes into steam and we ignore it, right? Right. So the energy's got to go somewhere in the universe. So we just have to have some way of figuring this out. And these tests require things that we don't have.
Right.
It'd be nice if we could had speed of light fast FTL probes. They could go out there and say, well, 1 billion light years away, the energy density at the 0 point is blah. In here, and we'd like to, I'd like to know if space is really expanding, right? At what rate?
Well, that would be like a wish list.
Right. So, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there because, everybody assumes it's expanding, but we haven't outlawed the opposite, is that there's a friction to the ether that, causes this same distortion, right? So ether meaning the quantum background. So, there's just all this stuff going out there. And I'm only throwing these out there because they're things people understand. I'm not necessarily questioning these things really. I'm just saying is that it would be nice to know, right, if they're true or not, because all our premises are based on a few things that have alternate explanations, and I'd like to have them nailed down.
That's an interesting premise, and it's like the thought that comes to my mind is that it would be nice to solve these problems, and they may be beyond our reach for generations, because we have immediate problems at hand that are take precedence, which is we have a socio-economic problem set that political problem set that needs to be resolved, because we're bordering on sheer madness.
Yes.
And it's like we need to resolve.
Does that mean everybody
madness.
has to solve the same problem? No.
What's that?
Well, I wanted to respond to that with two questions. Okay. First, does everybody need to solve the same problem? In other words, you and I and the team, we're working on solving the problem of the behavioral sciences, economic, everything that's not physics, we're trying to solve.
Everything but physics.
Physics, chemistry, but we're not trying to solve that. We're trying to solve what we call behavioral. It's cognitive science, psychology, sociology, economics, and politics and group strategy. I mean, we're solving everything that's not the physical sciences, right?
We're solving the after.
Right. So
During it, we're solving for during and after, not
right,
before.
we're solving during and after, and they're solving before. Okay, great. Well, but that's so we don't all have to solve the same problem.
Right.
Our problem is a little more serious than that other question, but you know, but I'm going to say that in both cases, one of the core problems is mathiness. In other words, there's a lot of thought that is generalized from what we consider purity, which is mathematics, and that includes mathiness in physics, which I just described, which is the replatonization of mathematics instead of a system of measurement to a language. Right, it's replatonization, and it's reversal of the Descartesian regrounding of mathematics and reality, like according to as the Greeks and Romans practice it. So we have this underlying problem. But if you look at these issues, all these issues of thinking, it appears to be the same problem of mathematics, which is solve an equation for a value. I don't know how do I say this better? It's like how do I? It's like trying to get to oneness. I can't quite figure out how to describe this. We grant mathematics too high a place of authority when its place is descriptive,
Yep.
but not constructive. And what we need to know is what's constructive, because descriptive doesn't tell us. It tells us how to understand the pattern that they're observing, but it doesn't tell us the causality. Whereas operations tell us the causality. And the difference between these two is that those operations tell us where to look for more information that could further disambiguate, whereas mathematics obscures. If you keep working in mathiness, you're obscuring the information necessary to produce the insights at the next level of precision. In other words, you're preventing. In other words, mathiness is a source of ignorance. And I see that, and I realize this is what I do, right? So I mean, I'm hypersensitive to it, just like anybody who's specialist in some field would be hypersensitive to it. Figuring out how to talk about it is something I've found yes. Increasingly challenging, but I get better at it all. So I take it back to women think in pictures when they do math, and men think in systems. It's like women think in experiences rather than men think in systems and operations, right? I mean, it's the same thing. Mathiness is like a tendency to go toward the feminine and congratulate yourself on explaining the experience, but not causality. So when I see these fundamental forces, in other words, these biases in humanity at all scales, and that's like I said, there's only a few intrinsic behaviors to mankind, and everything evolves from those few intrinsic behaviors. Disambiguation, categorization, prediction, spatial evaluation, wayfinding. I mean, it's all the same, and everything comes out of that very simple thing. Well, then where does this come? Well, it comes out to be whether you're dividing the labor of time into the experience of now, which is pictures, right, and words, or the experience over time, which is causes and systems. And so you start out with, okay, well, that's the fundamental basis. That difference is the fundamental basis. The divergence of human thought is the empathic in time, pictorial and verbal, versus the systemic over time, operational and simulated. So it's very different views of this world, and all these human differences arise from it. So again, somebody asked me about what's a first principle this morning, and I'm like, well, a first principle is basically a law, right? Because it's irreducible.
Yep.
At that scale. So the irreducibility of human behavior is, embodiment, embodiment, bilateralism, hemispheres, action acquisition, wayfind, discrimination, disambiguation, wayfinding. I mean, the rest of it's just how much remember on top of it. That's it. And the difference between when people don't think of it this way. It's so simple that the minute you get bilateralism, you turn from a worm into something with two sides, right? Right. As that happens, now you've got to figure out how to coordinate those two brains, right?
That's right.
Right. And so who has priority? Well, you don't have to have a priority all the time, but generally the predator has a priority in when you're doing something. The prey has a priority to something else. And the corpus callosum is down there forming some statistical preference for which of those two we're getting. So once you realize that humans are everything's built on a very small number of.
It's built on a simple chassis, right?
Yeah, very simple chassis. And so it's not that complicated. So I feel like I've gone too long. I originally interrupted you, said let me finish my arc, and then I went on this fucking arc that went up forever.
I didn't notice. I just remain calm and try to hang with the program.
So my fundamental thing is when I say that it went wrong and with Babbage, I mean it. Is that small things in large numbers have vast consequences, and it goes back to the Greeks thought of math as sort of mystical. Magical, right? And Plato carries this into Platonism, which is sort of mystical and magic. So it's this one concept. Now, which is better, the geometric engineering of the Greeks, or the accounting and astrology of the Semites? Well, it's the engineering of the Greeks and Greeks and the Egyptian, right, is more important. Why? Because one leads you to realism and one leads you to supernaturalism. Well, why? Well, because they were more interested in the supernatural and we were more interested in the real. And there's a reason for that.
It kind of comes to, it goes to the dream of the alchemists, right? Which is turn base metals into gold.
Yeah.
And we can do it. We just put our mind to it. We will be able to generate wealth from nothing. Because it's like the Europeans. The question is, why shouldn't we just kill you and take your stuff? The Semites might have a different set of rude questions, which would be something like, why don't we just cast a spell on you and enslave all your people forever?
Yes, exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
And it's like, there's and I didn't even think of that until just now, but I thank you for providing the stimulus necessary to cause it to come out into the open.
That's brilliant. What you just said is brilliant. It's brilliant.
Well, it's because we might have to reformulate the rude questions for each civilization because of their preferences.
Right. So more that we say we can start with the one we have.
Yes.
And we can amplify it and apply it to different civilizations, right? And that's probably the correct answer. It's very quite good. So I mean, it's these convergence of just two things, right? You start out with your fundamental problem being engineering. And so you think of the world one way. You start with the fundamental problem being supernaturalism and prediction.
Social engineering,
right.
Social construction.
Social engineering, exactly. You end up with two different questions.
Probably, right. So yeah. Okay.
So you end up with different questions to ask. And so, when I say civilizations work the same way that cognition works. We built up everything out of basically 4 or 5 basic principles of cognition. And it only, that's all the brain does really. That the rest is memory, recursion. Whereas the same thing happens in civilizations. They start out with a group evolutionary strategy. And on top of it, they add other assumptions, and it just keeps building until.
Yes.
So our assumption that's false is that the universe is mathematical. No, we describe it mathematically, but the universe, like all else in the world, is computational.
So the
It's evolutionary.
I'm looping back to this Twitter thing. So the Twitter has given me an opportunity to interact with people in a different way, because I'm interacting with them, and it's like I'm witnessing something that I'm gaining appreciation for, the understanding of the operation of idealism, unspoken idealism, as an underlying assumption of many people.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, now I appreciate it, and I can understand it and appreciate it, which is to say, become cognizant of it in its unspoken expression, which I wasn't able to do before. And it's interesting because it's like that there's a bunch of unspoken things that underlie this, the operation the person's going to be presenting. They're presenting some typed form, and there's operations there that are occurring, that have occurred as off the screen. And understanding that, and then being able to interact with that, is interesting.
So in the context of your progression, are you starting to see people more as bots as you learn?
I think that's fairly accurate. Yeah, I appreciate the bot-like behavior of people more and more.
Yes,
because it's like they can't do something different. Correct. It's a deterministic pathway they're on, and that's just how it is. So it's like, and this is interesting, because when I'm interacting with people, and the people are expressing frustration because the bots are not moving fast enough to do the thing. And it's like, no, this is just how much energy it takes to cause the bots to be sufficiently motivated to move to the next place. So it has to get worse. Right. Sorry. And it just makes the early adapters they get frustrated.
Right. It makes us get exactly. So the result for me was that I viewed people more forgivingly. In other words,
because yes, it's just they can't help it.
They can't help it. So the only thing that bothers me is when people intentionally undermine, right? So it's like, now you're not a victim. Now you're an aggressor out in your ignorance, right? So there's people who just don't know, and they're pursuing their idealism, but then there are people who are active combatants.
Yeah, they think that it's necessary to fight with you,
right?
And that they can't help it either,
right?
Because it's like a existential function that's occurring.
What's the end result? The end result is what percentage of people can become aware of their bots? I mean, can you become aware of your own bothood? Like, I'm aware of mine, right?
So it goes to this. That's a very, very, it's such an amusing question. It's borderline utterly ridiculous, which is to say, like this. It's like, okay, so you see this videos where the clever scientist brings a mirror into the jungle. Have you seen these?
Of course, yeah.
And so it's like the gorillas seeing and the cats seeing themselves, and it's like, so self-awareness, right? Okay, so self-awareness, but there's a point at which you see there's the ideal of free will, right?
Yes.
And it's like, so I was thinking of this morning before we met, I must say, in which the nice person who I was interacting with on some forum, I think it must have been a Signal or something, but they suggested that I get B.F. Skinner's books on behaviorism. And I'm like, it's what it is, because it's like it takes for me to be aware of that I'm looking in a mirror and I'm seeing myself. That's the self-awareness one. For me to be aware and think that I have free will is still self-awareness one. But for me to recognize that it's a deterministic function that I'm playing out is self-awareness two. And self-awareness two, that's what my good friend Dr. Enriquez would call the double hermeneutic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that one the brain wants to reject because it wants to maintain the illusion of free will, which B.F. Skinner says is just ignorance.
Well,
Freedom is ignorance.
the brain wants to reduce its work, which I'm agreeing with you, right? I'm just going to frame it differently. The brain wants to do its work, and what you're saying is, wait a minute, I got to do the work in the first place, and I got to audit myself and do the work again. I mean, I had that nice thing called instinct, and then you made me review that and say, oh well, then I'm self-aware, and then you make me do that again and say, okay, now am I nuts? Am I, does this make any sense? So am I self-aware of my self-awareness enough to be not be derationalized by one of the lower levels, right? To obtain some freedom from it. I don't know. I mean, I just think working with this, the problem with our work is you have to habituate it. In other words,
Right.
you have to make it a cognitive process in your head. It's like you see some mathematicians; they always blow me away. It's like, how fast they can say it's one of those. It's in this category of math problems. It's whatever.
Yes.
Because we tend to think math is like everything under the pyramid is solvable, but it isn't. It's
Right.
like there's these places where the lightning strikes, where the mathematics is solvable. And then maybe you could take this piece of lightning strike and that piece of lightning strike and that piece of lightning strike and put it under this piece of lightning strike and maybe figure out what's solvable, at least close under there, right? But it's not coverage because everything isn't reducible, mathematically
Right.
reducible. Anyway, so do you feel it's made you more tolerant of the bots, of people as bots?
But no, so it's interesting. So I'm interacting with people on the Twitter feed, and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to be positive and engaging and soothing for the, like, there's ones that are frustrated, and it's like everything's going according to plan, everything is just fine, and it's okay, and it will work out. It's just, this is what it takes to move to the next state of human development. That's where we're at. We're just that we can't be you can wish you were in a place, and that pining for that place is causing you harm. It's like, yeah, just be where you're at. It's okay. We'll get there. And you may be wrong about where it needs to go anyway, but you wanting it to go there is okay. And it's part of the process, but it's like, but it's caused me to understand things and have a different time preference.
Explain that. Keep
going. It's
going.
like this. It's like, it doesn't bother me so much.
Yes.
The immediacy of the problems don't bother me so much. I'm not very urgently motivated, because it's like, right, it's not gonna, me being all agitated is not gonna move the dial. Okay. Right. And so that's okay. But then I'm like, okay, so my game plan is to put out the right vibration that sends out the signal that says this one is worthy of paying attention to.
Yes.
And then why, if they ask why, they get directed to the funnel that brings them to the base, which is knowledge and science.
Right.
And that's what, if we do that, then we're accomplishing our objective in time and over time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I see the process functioning, because it's like, I think that it will occur, and this is what's interesting, is it will occur like bankruptcy, which is slowly at first and then all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue is, it takes time in service to be able to process the information correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can arrive to the source, and we can teach you the science, and it just takes time. And then you need to accommodate your brain patterns have to accommodate to the fact that you've got new knowledge, and you have to work. It takes work to do it until you have generate new habits. which is what you were talking about with accommodate to it, which is the time in service is just steeping in the vibration of the way the mentation works with this knowledge base across and over and in time.
Mm.
So like I say, to me, to spot the ideals at work and appreciate them, which is like the ideal that I was appreciating was that the left really believes that everybody's the same.
Yes, they do.
And it's just an error. It's just an error. It's like that these are not interchangeable widgets. It doesn't work like that. But they can't help it.
That's right.
They want to believe that, and for them to not believe that, they have to absorb information in a way that they aren't able to do it right now.
And they have to feel about themselves in relation to the world. It's an way that's intolerable for them. Because the reason they have this empathizing preference and this herd bias toward the herd and gregarious to the herd is actually to avoid conflict. Right? That's we always spin it in the positive, but the real case is it's an evasion of responsibility because they want to evade conflict, because conflict can be costly, especially when you gain most of your information by consensus from others. Yes. So you can't. It's like there's no way you're going to teach that animal to think the opposite.
Okay.
Feel the opposite.
Wait, so there's a story in which the story is that somebody's out with their green friend and they're looking at some lions, and it's like the only reason those lions eat other animals is because they were trained to do so. Okay? Which is to say, let's just go the other way. The only reason the horse eats grass is because no one trained him to be a predator. Right? It's just like this. It's like that's how they have to think.
Terrible.
Uh,
it's terrible.
Tell me, what does that mean? The premise of training my horse to be a predator, is that terrible?
No, just the idea that you could think. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
It's magical thinking, right?
Well, so here's a parallel to consider. So what they're doing is that they're maximizing the non-conflict in order to maximize the opportunity for reciprocal cooperation. Right?
Whoa! Not reciprocal.
Oh, excuse me. They're just looking for non-conflict.
They're looking for non-conflict in time and libertarian temporary agreement. Right. Was there a name for that? Like volunteerism. That's what they want.
Right, volunteerism, which is opportunistic ethics. Right.
And it only has to work in time, because overtime it won't work, and it doesn't matter. They don't care about overtime.
Right.
So discount future loss of future problems.
Right.
It's kicking the can.
Mm-hmm. So, but it's safest for them.
Yes.
Because they're always willing to take some hit in order to prevent conflict. Right. So, and they're always willing to amp up the males, the opposites, to do their fighting for them.
Right. That's the Fertile Crescent way, which is we have a disposable set of alpha males.
Yes.
That we can send in to do the dirty work.
Yes. So, oh shoot, I lost it. So how were you starting your arc here?
We were starting with the premise that we can train that horse to be a predator.
Right, and so you can't, right? And so the answer, though, is that you have to create a market between predators and prey, right? And by not requiring you demonstrate predator ethics, right, which are capitalizing, we've allowed prey ethics into the decision-making of the polity, which is increasing our vulnerability and externalizing on the predators, increasing responsibility for risk. So, I mean,
So what has happened is, because someone was asking me, why do we have so much, like you posted one of these, no, it was Peterson. He posted a terrible image of a man acting like a baby, a video. And I'm like, God, no, I can't unsee that.
yeah, it's fucking.
I really found that to be exceptionally rude. I'm like, God, don't do that. And it's like, why do we see this? It was the question. Why are we seeing more of this? And it's like because we have a surplus prey at the ethos. We're in a prey ethos, and they don't feel
prey
any
because of it.
What's that?
And we're becoming prey because of it.
Well, this is just we showed this cycle, the predator prey ratios. So the extreme prey quantity demands higher predator ratio. So the predators are being called out, and it's like they're going to come out, and it's going to take a little bit of time. This is just the early adapters are not anxious, but they're frustrated because they see what's happening, and this is not acceptable. And it's like, of course it's not acceptable, and that's sufficient to cause you to move. But we have more predators that need to wake up from their torpor because they just had a big meal, they just had sex, and they are still in their festivity mode. And the festivity has to end before we can go out on the next hunt. And that's what's coming out. So it's just the motivational forces being gathered.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time. It's just a matter of time. What's interesting, if you look at this from the predator prey and the Fertile Crescent civilizational standpoint. So the Fertile Crescent civilizational standpoint is we send a bunch of disposable alpha males in to do the dirty work. That's what the betas do. And then we'll get a new set later. And it's like the issue is that they're failing in their recruitment to get new alpha males. Mm-hmm. They're not, because the next generation of alpha males has been dissuaded because they're like the betas are running the shop and they're not making any sense to the people who are generating the alphas. And the alphas are not volunteering for the job. So volunteerism is failing. So that because it doesn't work over time. They see the way that the prior generations of alphas were treated.
Yes.
So volunteerism fails because it's not reciprocal. And everybody who's a
I see. Right. It isn't reciprocal. It's the illusion of reciprocity.
It's reciprocity in time.
In time, not over time.
Right now, sign on the dotted line. You signed it. So volunteerism is, and this is where the libertarians fail because they are not talking about reciprocity.
Do we need to add that?
I don't know. I just had to tell it to you because I thought it was noteworthy.
Voluntary transfer demonstrating interest free of imposition of cost by externality and the limits of warranty and liability. A warranty would imply over time. Would only imply that the transaction itself was warranted. It wouldn't make any claim on future transactions. Right? There's
no. It's like the thing is unto itself. It has no extension in over time.
Okay, so that's the difference. Is the time the time scale, even if you're reciprocal.
All deals are final. There is no take backs. It's the same as when you're a kid, blackjack, no take back.
Right, but okay, so I could do something fully moral and reciprocal with you, right? We could do something exchange. Um, and so that is, I've warranted that everything I told you was true, but it would have no claim on our future interactions. Right, so that's just in time. And so there's two dimensions, there's reciprocity, demonstrated interest, and time. In other words, you're trying to build a society and a polity, or you're trying to conduct a trade that doesn't result in retaliation. So in other words, this is pretty interesting discussion we've ended up with here. Um, so Christianity's thing is, if you have, is that just keep trying until you bait them into goodness. Right? And the enemy's position is just keep trying until you bait them into hazard.
No, they have a dualistic set of ethics.
Well, that's what I mean. Libertarians are, there's no obligation past the deal. And what we're saying is that that's okay for the individual, but but you have a problem of scale. So now the problem is, how do we make it possible to produce commons?
So the libertarians are not concerned with the commons.
No, like I said, Marxism is a prohibition on the private, and libertarian is a near prohibition. I mean, communism is a near prohibition on the private, and libertarianism is a near prohibition on the common. It's like, so I say, all these philosophies, these Jewish Marxist leftist philosophies, they're all monolithic, right? So Marxism is for the lower class, working classes. Libertarianism is for the middle class. Neoconservatives for the upper class. These are all monolithic philosophies. They don't take into account cooperation between the classes, which is what we're trying to do by creating reciprocity, sovereignty, reciprocity, reciprocal assurance of sovereignty, reciprocity, and with the demand for truth, beauty, truth, excellence, duty, truth, excellence, and beauty. Yeah. Which we're trying, because duty, truth, excellence, and beauty, those are commands for the commons. Reciprocity is just the eradication of incentive to retaliation, but it's not the incentive to produce commons. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. And so you have two problems there. One is that, well, I mean, reciprocity is great if you can defend reciprocity, but you need commons to defend sovereignty and reciprocity. So we create commons so that we can create the sovereignty and reciprocity for the individual. So it's not an either or proposition. You have to do both.
So there's a via positiva and a via negativa.
Negativa, right. So
it is necessary to generate the commons to create the incentive for participation in the sovereign system of reciprocity.
Right. You can't assure it otherwise. It's not assurable. And once you have your own assure, now you have lost the incentive for reciprocity, sovereignty, reciprocity, truth, and duty. In other words, that's the problem, is that when you become powerful enough, it becomes no longer the incentive to produce a common good. I mean, that's why I say what we teach is commonsism.
I'm writing that down because it's ridiculous. Okay. Right. And that formulation, in fact, that little arc was very useful because it was not other, it's not been made
explicit.
Right. Until now. And it's very straightforward construction.
Well, a lot of mistakes, um, is that I overestimate the other person. Yeah, I overestimate people, right? It's just, and I mean just like individuals and groups, right? I overestimate. Right? The second thing is I assume that everybody can follow the same uh, depth of dependencies I do when I'm thinking about something. So what I think something is obvious, but it's not.
It's very not likely to be false.
Um, and so I tend to think of it, and I know where I get this from. I get this from when you're designing software simulations, so because that's what I mean, simulation software, game systems, simulations, environments, whatever.
Right.
You basically develop agents and processes, right? And so the when I'm working on something, there are emergent properties of a system.
Yes.
And so I tend to worry about creating the system that will produce the emergent properties. But I don't tend to document the emergent properties. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because to me, they're logically self-evident, but they're not logically self-evident. And they may be the thing that people are interested in, not the first principle, which is what generates the original behavior
Right.
that produces the emergent properties and behaviors. So to me, it's like I was trying to do this yesterday. Somebody's asking me about sovereignty and then reciprocity, self-determination, sovereignty, reciprocity. You can't have one without the others. It's right. You have to have all of them, right? So it's not like you get one
Three
and that's
things.
right. You have to have all three, uh, because you can't have self-determination without sovereignty. Self-determination by self-determined means. Like, well, what does self-determined means are? Well, it's whatever satisfies sovereignty and reciprocity, right? I mean, so you can't. So they're trying to make everything complete and then stair step up, and it doesn't work like that. You have to have the triangulation
Right.
of self-determination by self-determined means, sovereignty and reciprocity. It's a triangulation of the three that produces, in fact, that produces sovereignty and reciprocity. And say, okay, if I want to scale this, is what we're talking about now. You have to produce commons that make the insurance possible. So you have to have more people. So it's like, so you have to, uh, and the problem, of course, when you have more people with a wider distribution. Whereas if you start out with initiatic brotherhood of warriors or entrepreneurs, basically, think of a guy on a chariot with all his armor and stuff, right?
Right.
He's your CEO, right, of your family's company. And that's really what it is too. He's essentially CEO of your family's company, right? And he goes out there and raids a bunch of cattle and brings them back, right? And now your family's corporation has now increased under the CEO. But that guy, he's not going to let anybody into CEOhood that hasn't got equal risk capital. Just like I'm not going to put anybody on my board who doesn't have risk capital.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm going to bring somebody in my management team, I'm going to give them risk capital, right? So I mean, we want to have people bring capital to the thing. Well, so the problem is once you start building societies, right? You start increasing the number of people who aren't CEOs,
Yes.
and so eventually you want to bring in, and then you increase. Now you've brought in your management team, and those are other warriors. They're just not chieftains, right? They're not the best that there is. So you're building this army up, right? Now at some point you're like, well, we actually need to have the foot soldiers. Okay, we'll bring them in. Now everybody's got aligned incentives in this thing until you bring in the women and the slaves. Women have very different motivators. The slaves have hostile
Mm-hmm.
incentives. And now you're going to take this group of people, these warriors, their entourages, their women and their slaves. You're going to go conquer some territory so you can get or conquer some territory, and those people are going to be not more hostile than your slaves.
That's right.
And so when you think about what we're doing by adding people to the polity,
Mm-hmm.
we're adding people with conflicting interests.
Mm-hmm.
This is why it's so important to have small, ethnically homogenous countries.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you have the minimum disalignment of interest,
Right.
the maximum capacity to form reciprocal exchanges. We should do it like Denmark. Great. Take 5 million people, put them on a peninsula, make them Germanic Protestants, and implement rule of law and see what happens, right? But it's not going to happen if you take people with 85 IQs and do the same fucking thing because they can't do it. They're not going to be able to do it. So you need and so there's a relationship between your political order and the productivity of your economy.
Mm-hmm.
Because so it's just more rule of law you get, the more better economy you get, the more subsistence farming you get, the more self-interest you get, the more divided interest you get, whatever.
So I want to branch off of this a little bit, because what has occurred in Western civilization is the beta types have occupied the financial service sector and have all the capital.
I'm not sure that's exactly true. I think that's close. I say the beta types have gone into government, and the financial sector has attracted the many alpha types who are happy to engage in irreciprocities. Well, I have a lot of friends in the finance. I mean, in the high levels of finance, in the big firms, right? These are people I understand. These guys are predators, and they've got.
I think they're predators. I think that they're cognitively.
I'm filling my coffee.
Oh, I see.
Keep going.
They're cognitively.
Cognitively what?
I'm pondering whether or not to say that. They're cognitively feminine in their alphaness.
In their whatness?
Alphaness.
They're parasitic. I don't know if that's. I don't know.
There's like the model breaks down, I think.
No, I just think that you can't. Are they trying to do it by verbal undermining? Or are they trying to do it by unethical and immoral and unethical and moral trade?
Yeah, I regard them as predatory, and parasitic is a good term, because a parasite doesn't have to think like a high risk individual.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's my take on it. So the administrators of they're underhanded and they're getting away with stuff is different than being an alpha and risking your neck.
Mm-hmm.
So the robber who robs you face to face is worthy of more respect than the bank who robs you.
That's probably true.
Because it's
the way I put it is, it's more what's more dishonest, right? Violence is honest. There's nothing dishonest about violence. It's the most honest form
that's right,
that there is, right? I mean,
so it's like the ones that I'm saying they're faceless, not responsible, taking advantage, parasitic is, that's what I'm calling beta in this context.
I don't like to convert confused terms.
No, I understand. I find that, like I say, the model breaks down. But the fact is that the capital of our civilization has been acquired and is under control of people that are not interested in maintaining the elements of success, the trifunctional system that was made our civilization to be successful.
Yes, because they don't understand that trifunctionalism exists because there's a prohibition on the authority they seek to produce. That's right. The symbol. Trifunctionalism exists because of the prohibition on authority.
But the people that we're dealing with are monopolists.
Correct.
And they want to monopolize the power and guarantee the trade and fix the trade so that they can't lose.
Which is, like I said, whatever happens, whenever you have enough force to be self-insured. I left my coffee pot plugged in, excuse me.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we can't let that go on.
No, that has to be put to a stop.
You don't want to burn the house down.
I don't.
You apparently don't. It's collectively insured here, so you don't have to have your own insurance.
So here's a question: is our conversation yesterday? I may change the subject.
Okay, please.
The conversation yesterday about making posters, and I worry about distracting you from your actions. But it's like, what do you think of that? Making posters.
Well, I didn't mean to say it as making posters. What I said is that I'm trying to skip the consolidation process before we do the allocation process.
Yes.
The consolidation process will produce, I think, what's close to the posters. It's not so much that I care about the posters; it's that I want to, instead of having arguments from slightly different dimensions to emphasize different properties, I'd like to have it all in a consistent frame, and to do that, and then we can copy paste that over into the different documents. And so what I said is I would copy the one we have, right, and I would say let's this one, and let's see if we can take this outline and reframe and reorganize it so it's all consistent by pulling in from each document those things that are necessary to make the minimum argument, right? Now, right now it's 3 or 4 documents, right? Depending on which, I mean, it's really like 4, but there's most of the stuff's in 2, right? Documents, and I'd like to just condense that up a little bit so that we would have one thing to edit and work from, and we can make that all consistent and then move it into place. Because the idea of trying to hold it all in my head, I can't hold the 4 documents I just can't hold it in my head.
It's a limited amount of operating memory.
I just can't. Yeah, well, that's really much. I can't hold I can't say that section on this piece and this piece and each of these 5 documents. I mean, it's like trying to hold a whole book in your head, and I can't do it. All right. So I don't want to. I'm in the same place as you. I was thinking of the same thing after we talked yesterday. And I'm like, well, I can either continue to suffer by trying to sit here with you and basically spending 20 minutes trying to load it all up in my head, only to say I can't hold it. I can't hold it, and at the same time restructure it to go into this particular place. I mean,
because that requires you to have 2 copies of it in your head.
It's just too much to hold in my head at one time. And so I said, why don't we just do it as steps and break it down? The result will be a draft of the posters, which is, or you could actually call it a pamphlet.
Sure, and that will be a perfect output,
right? A pamphlet that says this is the basics here, and that's fine. So, I mean, I'm okay with that view. I mean, if I go over and I switch back to, which I did earlier, I go back to, okay, well, let's look at the science. Whatever the sections we've got on the science, they are rock fucking solid, right? But it's not humanly readable by people other than like you and me. I mean, it's really, I mean, it's a proof, right?
Yes.
And those proofs are long.
Yes.
Right. So we don't want to write all that. We want to have
That's right.
definitions.
So we just need the pamphlet. Call it the pamphlet. That will be a useful output.
Well, you hear
as
that
an intermediary
today.
step. Okay.
Well, yes, and you hear that from people when I post these things up there. Like I posted something on truth. I posted something on our choice, and what's the choice that faces us? Separation. You know, people want that stuff.
Right.
People want those things. And somebody asked me yesterday, well, Curt, you know, if anything happens to you, do we have all your right? Well, yeah, of course we archive everything, but and finally looks like there's a plugin that allows me to move Twitter posts over to WordPress. So the process is less time consuming. So if I have an afternoon where I'm otherwise brain dead, I'll work on that. You know, I'm like, well, you know, it's not like this stuff. And so I said, well, look, if you go up to our site and go to, you know, learn and go down to the documentations, you'll see the 8 volumes or whatever they have outlined up there, and they'll have the marker, at least the outlines for those 8 volumes. So it's not like it's not there, and all the stuff's online in the WordPress archive. Although it takes to read the 20,000 whatever things that are up there is some work. So
it's that's just such an understatement. It's because the people go ask me about how I got to interacting with you. I said, first I read 400 pages, then I decided that he had something there and that he needed help, and then it took me a year to become conversant. And it's like, wow, it's like it's like work, just like what we're talking about is like English.
it's not English.
It's like it though. It's so similar that some people can't tell the difference. Curt.
Yes. Well, you know, and of course, I went through a period now for a couple of years where I was like, have I lost my faculties? And of course, they're returning, so I haven't lost them. I just had the same problem that Hayek did. So anyway, so to answer your question, I don't think we're trying to delay production. I think that
No.
this is I can't hold it in my head, and so we have to play the game of.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
My suggestion is that we generate the pamphlet as the intermediary step and publish it.
We could do that easily.
That's the game. And then we got a game. We have a goal that we can achieve in a reasonable time frame, and that acts as a stepping stone to arc to the next element of the project.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
To me, it's all about making it bite-sized pieces because it's just an elephant. In fact, it's not. It's a woolly mammoth.
If I open up the book, hold on a second. Window. I don't have a file open recent. I think this is the most recent one. So you read the 400 pages that were online, right? You didn't.
That's
read,
right. I printed it out and I read it. I'll look for it if I still have it around because it's there. I probably wrote notes in it. which would
Well,
be,
I know. I just want to know which one you read.
yeah, I don't recall. It was
Let me
about a
just share my.
400 page. It was roughly 400 pages.
I go here and I share my screen.
Yeah, there you go.
You can see first principles, the methodology.
Yes.
But you haven't seen this, right? This is the draft of the book.
No.
You see this has all the reforms.
Yeah, I didn't have all that in it.
Right now, this one is not complete, and it's 800 pages.
Mm-hmm.
So if you actually put all the content in here, which is spread in a bunch of other documents,
Mm-hmm.
like 1,500 pages, it's too much.
Right.
You just can't do it. I'd never get it done. I mean, I would, if there wasn't some urgency here, right?
Right.
Um, but it's not like I haven't drafted the whole. I haven't drafted the whole thing
Mm-hmm.
like this one. You know, it's like you know. So this is the way I work up from libertarianism, but it's when I decided that I really didn't want to be bound to libertarianism. Right? As I didn't want to treat it as an evolution of libertarianism, like a political philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, I'm just going to turn it into a science.
Right.
And you were even more clear about that.
I was.
Yeah, you were more rock solid water on a fucking rock, determined about that one, and you were right. So fuck you. So I started out wanting to put it as economics. And then I said, well, I'll do it as history. Then I said, I'll do it as philosophy. And then I'll do it as law. And now I'll do it as science and law. I mean, it's that. And people say, well, you should have published as you went along. No, because you get anchored. And it's not like I want it for money, right? It's not like it's a money thing. I mean, I couldn't care. I mean, you don't make money writing books.
Right.
You make money on speaking engagements because you wrote books.
Hmm.
You don't matter generally money writing books. So anyway, so what I would like to do is, excuse me, so if I understand correctly, have I made my case that it's okay for us to work on this consolidation before we work on the allocation
Absolutely.
of the consolidation?
Absolutely.
And if you agree that the pamphlet that we're done here is useful, well, we can publish the pamphlet. I have no
Yeah.
problem with that one. That seems like it's a fairly logical thing. What do you give me the face for? I don't understand what I'm doing wrong here.
Nothing. You're doing everything fine. I'm just
Okay.
defocusing and just looking at the screen.
Okay. Yeah, I sent this out.
You're not sharing your screen now.
Well, it doesn't do any goddamn good, does it?
That's kind of why I wanted you to be aware of it.
You're a smart man, a man of talent, wisdom, virtue, and sarcasm.
And a big head.
I don't think you have a big head. You're actually way too fucking humble, if you ask me.
Oh my.
I'd be way more of an arrogant prick than you are if I were you. Yeah. Huh. Oh, wait, where did those go? Just above here. Yep. I made a copy. And I said, well, let's play the game here. Let's play that game. Taking those headlines, copying them into here, and moving over. Where is it? Outline, and it's linear logic. This one and this one.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, did I miss one? I don't think I should have that one. Oh, that's okay. Session notes is there. If I have the juice for this. I don't. I don't have the juice.
So right. Let me look at that outline there.
This one here?
Yeah. Pull it up a little bit down. Yeah. I'm just making the topics. That's all right. Okay. I got it.
Let me just send it to you.
That will be good. You could post it in the on the website.
Help me.
Pardon me?
Help, I don't understand.
You could post that section you just clipped out, you copied on the website.
Yeah, but where on the website?
But I don't know.
Well, it's just go to the page.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay. It's outline draft is the name of it.
yeah, I'm just going to send you the link.
Okay. Thank you.
Sent.
Thank you.
If you have any bright ideas,
right?
Appreciated. Yeah, I think I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. I don't know why I'm done, but I'm done.
That's all right. So the issue is this: I'm waiting for my Twitter long form to be available, right? Because I'm waiting for my little blue check mark to get here, and I don't know how long to expect that to take. But it's like, okay, then I can
5-10 days.
okay, then I will be able to because I get distracted by chopping it up into pieces because I don't think it gets read very well.
It doesn't get read well. That's why they did it. All right.
That's why they did that.
They did it for that reason because they're trying to encourage content producers, right, to put content in the app. So now they've added bold and italic, right? That's huge.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they're going to add video, and it's going to be just like a combination of everybody, right?
That's good.
So now they've got Facebook content, right? The Facebook size content. They've added the organizations, but you know, $1,000, that's a lot. I mean, if they asked us for $100 a month, we could do that. But $1,000 a month for our organization is too much money to ask.
Yeah, that seems like a lot.
Well, I mean, it's not a lot if you want it to be for, you know, commercial organizations. Like for commercial news organization, that's nothing.
Right.
And so I think it's a good number. I just think there should be, they should let us have organizations that aren't branded, right? That don't have the little sticker on them.
Corporations.
Yeah, so that we can organize people into that kind of thing and have a page for the organization. But so they'd be different from verified organizations and unverified organizations. You know, I don't disagree with anything they're doing. It's just that we can't, that's too much for us to do. All right. I gotta close this share now.
Well, I hope you found this little session to be useful.
Well, I loved the first argument we made, and then we just clarified this last bit so we can go forward. I still got energy enough to work, but I don't have energy enough to talk. Vocalize. So
that's all right too.
Yes.
It's been quite a
So Brad, how come you managed to talk all day?
Pardon me? I have a quite a stamina for that kind of thing, I suppose. I practice a lot because I worked for 4 hours before I started seeing you, and I'm talking to people intermittently, and then I'm studying the feeds and interacting a little bit, but I have to be pleasant and cooperative and productive and pleasant. And
does that work for you? Is that what you're telling me?
Apparently it does. Because I think that I'm much more pleasant than I was before.
Are you?
And I got it. This is interesting. I'm working with a gentleman today, an African-American fellow. And I was talking to him, and I'm working with him, and I'm talking to him, and I'm just behaving like I always behave. I just behave like the perfect professional gentleman, as I would if it were an ideal that I'm representing.
Yes.
And it works spectacularly for me because it's like this. People treat me with the deference that I would like, right? Prefer. But this fellow was interesting because he's like this. He goes, he's never dealt with the telemedicine before. And he says it was a wonderful experience, and that must be why your reviews are so high. And I said, that is an exceptionally kind thing to say, because I don't know what my reviews say about me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this, but it's like what there was a transformative process there in which I decided actively to behave as though I am presenting the ideal of a Western civilizational doctor treating the patients.
Yes.
And so then I'm consciously actively trying to do that and suppress my own behavioral economic cycles that I was working on with before, which is interesting. And it, like I say, it works
flawlessly.
It's beautiful. And it's like, I can't ask for better. And some people are still going to get mad at me, but I found it to be interesting because I didn't expect that. It was kind of like a leap of faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're wayfinding and you haven't been here before.
Yeah, you're making me. Of course, I have a pretty high opinion of you. Of course, despite the evidence.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I just had to tease a little bit.
No, that was essential.
That was necessary. Quite an opinion of you. I noticed with customers, I have a thing which is true. Tell them the fucking truth.
Yep.
That's it. I mean, it's really that simple, right? I'd like your business. I'd like your business under these conditions. I'd like your business. I'd like your business under the conditions. I don't want your business under these conditions. These conditions, we're in business. These conditions are unsuitable for the promise I make to my employees and my customers. I mean, it's a really simple path for me, right? I don't, and the other thing is we don't nickel and dime people. I don't nickel and dime people. Like if it's our fuck up, I eat it. If it's their fuck up, I say I'll split it with you. Right. Which means I won't make money on it, but I won't lose money on it.
That's right.
And that is about all it takes. I mean, it's just be honest and unselfish, right?
That's a good start. Perfect.
And what that does, but I have a bunch of these memories of people bringing in to me clients who are trying to take advantage of us. And they think I'm going to solve the problem. And I am going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to
exclude them.
I'm going to tell the client the truth. And this takes all this game playing off the table. And if I'm always willing to lose the client.
That's right.
Because if I can't have that truthful reciprocal interaction with, despite that we're all fucking human, right? I mean, if your boss is a dick, and I know your boss is a dick, I'm going to try to make you successful. Matter of fact, one of the things we do is we ask a client, how can we get you promoted? Right? Who the fuck asks that? So if we helped you get promoted, what would it take?
Yeah, right? How could we do that?
How could we do that? All right. So we think of these things and we just set up these goals, and that's just how we look at the problem. Right? Everything else is just work. Right?
That's right.
You have the talent, you work. Well, I mean, the thing is, people don't realize if you have that reputation, we have this reputation, right? You could charge more money. If you charge more money, you can hire the better people. You don't necessarily make more profit. You just have fucking problems. This is one of the things Jim and I have been trying to teach people for years, is that you want to have the ethical company because you want to have fewer fucking problems.
Yes, sir.
Right? And there's profit that can be bought in exchange for problems. Is that profit? It's not.
It's work.
You paid for that extra stuff, right? So my whole thing is just be fucking honest, right? Do the best work you can. Try to figure out how to make the client successful. But whenever somebody's lying, you say, this is bullshit, right? No. And if it takes me going into some office and saying, because this happens, it's all my fault. I gave them that direction because I misunderstood what you were trying to accomplish. I'll write off 50 grand of this and let's just call each other friends. Right. I mean, if I got to fall on my sword and take the blame, no problem. Yeah. But I'm going to save my staff.
That's right.
Right. Because you got to defend them. So it's like you're saying the same thing. The problem is that people get they become too short term about the.
Oh yeah. No, so I had an interesting interaction yesterday with one of my associates' patients, and she wanted a refill on a controlled substance that the pharmacy wouldn't fill because it was too early. And I watched her do this gyration because it was the bot, and she was she played out a bunch of subroutines on me. She pleaded, she begged, she cursed at me, just ordering me to do stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is not how this works here.
Yes.
Right. And it's like, so I'm not going to do it. I know, just go do this. She's trying to get me to do the thing. And it's like, okay, she ended up getting fired for it. But it's like, because he can't work with you because you're not being square. You're irrational. It's to behavioral economics.
Why would she get fired for it?
Oh,
you mean she was addicted to something?
It appears that way, and it's like I went over to my associate's office on the other side of the building. Right, I walked over, and it's a little building. It's just like a house. Mm-hmm. I walk over there, and he's just snickering with the nurses because he heard about the whole thing through the door, and he's like, she's all yours. You can keep her. And I said, I don't want her. I'm like good with it because she got fired because she made verbal threats against the pharmacy.
Oh, yes.
Threatening physical destruction of their facility. It's like, okay, I don't know what that means, but we're in Arizona and everybody's presumed to be armed here. And
yes, exactly. Okay. Yeah. So let me ask
I don't know how to value the threats, but I'm like, it's more than zero.
Okay, so let me ask a question. So the only thing I can really say I have had withdraw from was Xanax.
That'll do it.
Right. And it's pretty awful, honestly. Right. Because when I started, they gave it to me originally. I didn't know. They just said,
that's right.
I didn't know anything. So when I was like, I got to get off of this shit because I realized what it was doing to me. Right. And let's take aside the fact that I shouldn't have had it in the first place because I was just feeling the effects of my cancer. But anyway,
that's awful.
So that makes you so irritable. But there needs to be some solution for the people who get in that condition, other than go home and deal with it. So what is there a potential way of solving this problem?
In other words, I try to help people with that. And it's like the issue is you just got to wean off of it. You wean off of it. You don't jump off of it.
Right.
Because if you jump off of it, it's too far. It's going to hurt you.
Oh, I did it. It was fucking awful.
It's irritating. it's like, okay. Irritating is not optimal treatment plan, in my opinion.
Well, I had the same problem.
Try to work with them.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I had the same problem as what's his name? Peterson.
Yeah.
And that was the aphasia. It
was messing with your memory,
nervous system,
your capacity to express.
No, for me, it just felt like my body was on fire.
Oh my!
And it won't go away. It just stays. It's like your nerves are burning, and so it's amplified by all sensation. So if you hear something, you see something, you touch something, you smell something, it
agitates you.
What?
It agitates your nervous system.
And it feels like it's somewhere between electrical shock and burn. Like I have a bunch of nerve damage from my cancer surgery in my neck. Yeah. So if I touch myself back here, it feels like I'm getting electric shocks.
Yeah.
Right? It's like that, like times 100.
Oh my!
So you look at a guy like Peterson, I'm like, and I'm a pretty tough, pain tolerant motherfucker. Really, he's not, right? And so I can imagine for him it was fucking brutal, and for me it was brutal. But I'm a dickhead, right? I'll just keep going. So, and it didn't last that long. Like for me, it went away pretty quickly. I don't remember. It was 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something like that. Before.
That's a pretty long time, man.
Well, it's a pretty long time if you're in his position, which is your wife has got sick. You have all these pressures, right? And so it's different. For me, I just like, I'm going to stay home for 3 weeks.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's fine. I can just do CEO. It's my company. I can do it. So you just get off it. So I understand it, but now I can't say, well, I did it. Well, fuck you. I mean, I'm not, I don't assume that everybody's like me. right?
Right. We don't
Right?
fall into it. There's a name for that fallacy. Everybody's like me. What will we name it?
It's
Does that make sense? Everybody's the
normalcy.
same and they're like me.
Yeah, it's something with normalcy. I forget it what it's called. Um,
Normalcy bias.
Something like that. So it's a tendency was we tend to think of ourselves as average or the average. In other words, it's logical. The self is the system of measurement which we use to measure everything else.
Right.
So I'm like I don't look at the world and say, "Wow, because I did it, you can do it." I look at the world and say, "I'm a pretty stubborn son of a bitch, and I can tolerate pain more than most people. So if it was a pain in the ass for me, it's got to be fucking hell for average people, and that's just not
that's
right."
that's kind of funny because I'm like this too, because I like talk to people and I'm like, I was talking with a guy and he has a functional problem, right? Like whatever pain, neck pain, shoulder pain. And I'm like, and I talking to him and I recognize he understands what I'm talking about. Okay. And I'm like, that's weird. Because I can easily think that I'm talking over someone's head when I talk about a functional problem, which is the way you're using the tension patterns in your body is
Yes.
causing you. It just hurts to be you when you do it that way. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to stop doing it that way, right?
Yep.
And he agreed and understood what I was talking about, modifying his posture or something like that. And I'm like, oh, you are like biting on the big apple, man. That one is irritating.
Yes.
Okay. And I will help the guy, but it's like kind of interesting because it's like I presume it to be a big can of worms, man. Right. And
Oh
I
yeah.
don't expect it to be easy. And I wouldn't even talk to him about it if I thought that it was even possible to avoid this subject.
Yes. Yes.
Just because it's like that, it's too much worms. But it is. That's an interesting function. It's like, yeah, you don't want to have anything to do with that one if you can avoid it.
Well, so let's get back to the question. So that's a good example. That's a good contrast. All right. Um, I can't move a certain way because of some damage I did to my spine in tennis when I was right.
Okay.
You just don't move that way, right? I lose when I was typing originally. I was holding my wrists at this angle,
Yeah.
type on the computer, and because I get when I reach this way,
Yeah.
I got a repetitive strain injury, right?
Oh
And I got to the
my.
point where I couldn't use my hands.
That's not good for a programmer.
No, and this is when I was at my most productive ever, which is December of 1980 something, right? This is when I'm writing that legal software, right? I mean, it's fucking amazing shit. My head is exploding with ideas, and I'm having I mean, I can't believe I'm getting paid to design and build this thing, right? My
Right.
team.
Cool.
So, but my hands are starting to be, I can't use my hands. I literally had to walk around like this. And so how do you change? You change your fucking behavior. So there's no repetitive strain injury.
It's
And you just
hard,
try to say,
man.
how do I keep these things as limp as possible? And it's really not that fucking difficult, right? But
Yeah, but it's really the learning curve is huge, isn't it?
it's hard to do when it's instinctual, right? I mean, and so we have a lot of these things that build up. So the problem, so with these are three different examples. I just said a short term thing that I can control the short term. I cannot bend a certain way, which is really hard to do anyway. It requires a sort of twist and lift, right? I just don't do it, right? Lift with your legs,
Right, right.
it's weightlifter stupid shit, right? So, uh, so then there's stuff like the guy who has a chronic pain injury that requires him to. How are you going to position your body? How are you going to reinforce to position your body so you don't do that? You don't build your tension there. Like I started getting numb in my shoulder
Yeah.
and my. You know what it's from? My fucking backpack. You've held my backpack.
Oh yeah.
You know how heavy my backpack is. Right?
Yeah.
And it was pinching the nerves of my spine, and I was losing from here all the way down up to.
Yeah.
And so, well, what do? You don't carry the backpack that way, and it goes
That's right.
right. Now you're telling a guy he's got to it's like you got a back or neck problem. I don't remember what it
Yeah.
is. You've got to do a lot of stuff to fix that because the part of it's biomechanical, right?
It's a
Right.
very here's the fascinating function of it is what I'm becoming aware of. It's like the Chinese will talk about meridians, okay? And it's like meridians are underactivated and overactivated.
Oh, I see. Smart.
And so it's like there are circuits that are not they don't have enough voltage moving through them.
Uh-huh.
And so it's like consciously switching the circuits on, which is what you were doing with this.
Yes.
You're doing your hands, because it's like you have to turn on some other circuits instead of leaning on the
Keyboard.
so you're not pushing the down on the table.
Yep.
With your wrists. You're levitating.
You're basically holding your hands in the air.
Yeah, and it's a different set of circuits that are firing, right?
Yes.
So it's just an energetic difference.
So, but the point you're trying to make is that, look, this guy's got a neck or problem, and it's not like this nerve is overextending, right? It's like a whole bunch of stuff is going. So he's got to learn a more complex problem, right? It's going to take more time.
It's going to take some doing,
right? It's going to take some doing. Now let's get to and so then you get to I go to the drug problem is that I'm not despite appearances, I'm not lacking in compassion. Don't look off the screen and think about it too long. But no, I'm not lacking in compassion. And so what do you? There's just seems to be no way for people who are having an addiction response or withdrawalist response to go have somebody just talk to them. In other words, because what you really need is distraction, okay? Or gradual withdrawal. Like if that person was abusing the med, so what if they have to go get a half whatever?
No, but see, the issue is the issue was not coming from our side. The issue was that the pharmacy won't fill what we ordered, even if I ordered it again tomorrow.
Why?
Because it's too early. You're using it faster than you're supposed to be using it.
No, I get all that, but there needs to be some emergency service. In other words, there needs to be some, like we have things for like drug addicts, right? But we don't have things for ordinary people to go get.
Well, you would go to the emergency department then.
Is that how you do it?
Well, it's like if you're having a problem, you go to the emergency department because I don't have a better plan.
Yeah.
And it's not
so there is. So your answer is no, there isn't.
There's no other service available that I'm aware of for that class of people.
So what we need is a normal people prescription withdrawal function somehow. All right, because what you really want to do is you want to play the game of tapering people right off. And the problem they have is it's like stress is like anxiety. They're like allergies, right? If your allergies are up here, the next level is way worse, right? Every incremental stress is way worse.
Right.
But if you take your allergies are inactive down here, then a little bit up and down, you don't feel it.
Right.
Right. It's like why I can have ketchup. Okay. I'm trying to get a laugh out of you, but ketchup has vinegar in it. I shouldn't eat ketchup. But
okay.
I'm down here.
Wondering what the prohibition on ketchup was about.
It's vinegar. It's a distillate, so it's got sulfites in it, right?
Okay.
So you can't eat, basically the allergy diet, you can't have anything fermented. Right. So which is like you wouldn't think that there was that much fermented stuff, but guess what MSG salts are. So we they give it all this monosodium glutamate. It's the product of fermentation. Right. It's so I can't have any of that stuff. So if you're here, so the same thing is with anxiety. If your anxiety is here and you get a little bit more, that's fine. But if you live a life of anxiety here, and the pill drops it to there, but then you go up there. If you go off the pill, your anxiety goes to here, and it's a logarithmic increase of stress. So the problem is like, really, people just, it's like, why is it we've lost the thing of you need to go on a, you You go to this place, it's basically a hotel, right? A hotel, and they monitor your medication for you until you're fine.
They have those that are like for withdrawal or for detox, they call it.
And how expensive are they? They're probably.
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, we got to normalize that process because, like, my sister got on. She had elbow surgery, and my family, we cannot touch opiates. I don't know what the fucking deal is.
Yeah.
Cannot touch them, right? Because I don't know what the fucking is with our biochemistry, but you put an opiate in our family, and it's like the one
Mess.
time, and you're like, the withdrawal is horrible. It's like when I came out of surgery, they were giving
Yeah. Morphine.
morphine. Holy shit, dude! I felt like I was dying. Right, from just that, from just sitting in the bed for 3 days, wherever it was, 6 days. So my sister came out, and it was absolutely horrific for her to go off OxyContin. So, I mean, we got to find some way to solve this problem other than, because what you really need is you be checked out and put somewhere that you go every day.
It's a controlled environment, yeah.
Right, because your head needs the freedom.
Yes.
Right, to lower. Anyway, I didn't mean to drag that conversation on long, but it just was kind of interesting that there's this is such a common problem we have today, and it's like we only.
The interesting the issue is the complication of the problem has been political.
Help me understand.
Because see, I get the patient will come in, so it'll be the patient will come in and say, because I also say something about how the circumstances shifted since 2018. Okay, 2018 is when I think it switched. Might have been 2016, but it's like it just was like this. They changed the rules, and that was a year. I went to the beach, and I was at the beach in North Carolina, and I was like, I don't even know that I can go back. Because I got warned about, so I was at the beach in July, and prior to that, about November, I had this fellow he was a great patient of ours, that a motorcycle gang.
Oh, you told me about this guy.
Collector. He goes, FBI is looking around town, and they got your name on their lips, and I'm like, really? So we started shedding patients because I'm like, okay, this is not good. This is like means I'm out of bounds. I gotta clear the decks and make sure that I'm playing by the square rules, because they were tightening up they added compression on the doctors about their prescribing habits for these medicines.
Yeah.
And so I tightened up the ship, and I kept on tightening all the way until July. And then I went to the beach, and I'm like, I don't even know that I can go back, because I'm like, how am I supposed to maintain? Because they had tightened 2 more ratchets by then. And it's like, I don't know that I can ethically do this. How do I do it?
Right.
And so I went back, and the FBI was in my office.
Hey, you told me that's good.
But it's like the issue is this: the patient will come to me and say something. I will say how they want the tightness is super tight now. How they want us to do it, I can't do it that way. And then the patient gets mad because they're not getting what they want, which is pain management.
Right.
And the way they think they should get it, which looks like pills.
Yeah.
They think they should get some pills because what's the harm here? And then they get mad at the people who abuse the system. They go, if it's all the few rats that spoil the whole barrel, right?
Is that true?
And I go, that's not correct. That's an inappropriate formulation. Because it's like this: if a guy wants to kill himself with drugs, he's going to kill himself with drugs no matter what you do. It's the politicians that are the problem, because they're interfering in my ability to try to take care of you.
Yes.
And those people are the problem. The people.
Are you saying that if they don't have oxy, they'll do something else?
Well, what happened was there's a. In fact, I have it on my computer. Hang on.
Find the subject fascinating.
I have this chart, and I'm going to send you I'm going to put the link in the chat that shows the number of opioid deaths by drug. And I'm going to put it in the chat, and then you can put it and then share it with the team, because I think that would be kind of cool. There it is. And then share your screen and show a picture of that thing. Let me see if I can share my screen, because I might be able to do that. No, it's disabled.
I can make it. I'll just do it. I've already got it up, so
Okay.
Flounder around in the.
Okay, so you see that it ends 2018.
Oh, I see.
It's fentanyl and synthetics. It's like, so, and I don't even know what it is now, but it's probably spiking up more, because there's this.
Oh yeah,
There's more deaths now than there were then, after they started helping. And you see the prescription was pretty flat. It's that yellow line there. It's at right around 15,000 per year.
I can't. We need to see it over in the 22.
Yep. Well, I don't have a more recent one. I just had that one.
That's only through September. It's from The Economist. Yeah. The centers. So I bet I would go find that information.
Yeah.
So holy shit.
And the you should see the troves that they're pulling in. That they in Arizona, they pull off the streets. It's like people with like a pickup truck full of this shit. Excuse my French.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's like a pickup truck's enough to kill everybody in Arizona.
Right.
And it's like, what are they doing with this? And it's like, the fact that you don't just hang the person who's caught with that, you put thumb screws on them and find out who their people are and go get them. These people are dangerous to your nation. It's to treat it as though it's some civil infraction, right? Like it's a criminal infraction. It's not criminal, it's war.
Holy shit, Brad. That's fucking terrible.
Yes, sir.
Well, I would expect this, right? And I'd expect that to level out somewhere in here.
Right.
I don't expect it to. But Jesus Christ.
I made a noise because we had a pain guy come and talk to us at the hospital, and it's like, yeah, it just drives the heroin. When you make the prescription opioids unavailable, you're driving the people to heroin. And the fentanyl is the worst one.
Yeah, but fentanyl's, yeah. What's the addiction to fentanyl? See,
it's a stronger drug, and it's like I don't regard these as much different from one another, except for the cocaine.
So the problem here is the supply of synthetic opioids has just skyrocketed. But this is a question of deaths.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out what use is.
What?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what consumption is versus. I mean,
it's my presumption is the street consumption has gone way up, because what was previously occurring was they call it diversion. Okay. It's diversion. So the people would divert it from the prescription area to street, but it would be prescription drugs available on the street. So they're known in their constitution inside those pills.
Right.
Now they have the fentanyl is being sold in fake pills that look like other pills. You need an I in there. Opioid.
Thank you.
Wait, you don't want guidelines.
I didn't do that on purpose.
I know. I'm just helping you to control it.
These are just overdoses. Don't tell me it's this year one.
Same one.
16. There we go. Well, the argument here would be, well, it's better if we get people addicted to prescriptions and
it's more controllable and safer. That's the issue.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about deaths. I think these are all going to be deaths. Yeah, it's only that. Well, this doesn't tell us anything, and the reason is that it's really easy to overdose on fentanyl.
Well, the issue is you're getting a pill off the street and you don't know what's in it.
Right. You see that great one of this poor cop?
Oh my!
He goes to the back of a truck to get something out of it, and his partner says, "Don't get close to the fentanyl, just a little bit of that," and it damn near kills him.
Oh yeah.
Just by the dust in the air.
Sometimes they put it there, they dust their underneath their door handle. Overdose.
Oh, you're kidding me. Say that again.
The dust touching your palm can overdo you.
Yeah, it's all deaths. You can't learn from deaths. Yeah.
Well, you can learn relatively what has occurred and see changes in policy, how they have impacted society in some sense over time.
I just have to go different searches.
Yeah, that's okay.
I think on it. Just too bad they don't have the consumption.
Right.
All right. Well, we filled our time. I thought we were going to close early today.
I know. I thought so too.
But anyway, thanks
glad
for
to find
something. Really,
go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing. Go ahead.
I was just glad to find something interesting to discuss.
Fascinating topic. Fascinating day. Thank you. So I guess next time we're ready to work. Is that what's going on?
I'm ready to work, Curt.
Okay. So
I'm going to look for that email you sent me.
Right.
And then I'm going to tell these guys to hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell too. And don't forget, leave some comments.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, by the way, the comments matter a lot, it turns out. And so do, and it's funny, replies and comments on Twitter are hugely elevated now. So that's
good. I don't know what impact that will have. It's kind of
they're looking for meaningful engagement. They're looking for, they're trying to raise participation over approval.
I like that.
All right. Love you, man. Thanks for a great talk.
Take care.